All right, today we're jumping into one of the most legendary intelligence missions you'll ever hear about. It's right out of the Book of Numbers, and it's this incredible story where one simple report, just one, ended up deciding the fate of an entire generation. It really is a powerful lesson in how your perspective can literally mean the difference between victory and defeat. So you got to understand what was at stake here. This was the promise that fueled their entire journey out of Egypt. And it wasn't just about getting a piece of land. It was this idea of a place of unbelievable abundance, a land, as they said, flowing with milk and honey. I mean, that was the ultimate symbol of prosperity, right? It was the finish line they'd been marching towards.
Okay, so before the whole nation could just pack up and cross the border, it was like, hold on, time out, a reconnaissance mission was needed. First things first. So God commands Moses to put together what's basically a special ops unit. We're talking 12 leaders, one from each of Israel's tribes, whose job was to go in and get the lay of the land. A real high-stakes scouting operation.
And let me tell you, their orders were crystal clear. This wasn't some casual tour, no sightseeing. This was a serious high-stakes intelligence operation. They had a checklist. Assess the people. Are they strong or are they weak? Evaluate the cities. Are they fortified up to the nines or are they wide open? And survey the land itself. Is it fertile or is it barren? Basically, get the intel on everything. The future really depended on what they brought back.
So how long did this take? The mission lasted for 40 days. 40! That's a long time. 40 days to explore, to observe, and to really form their conclusions. So this wasn't just a quick peek over the fence. Nope, this was a deep dive, an in-depth survey. They had more than enough time to see the good, the bad, and the ugly, the land's potential and its challenges.
So the 40 days are up. The spies return to camp, and you can just imagine the scene, right? The entire nation gathers around, completely silent, just holding its breath. Everyone knows this is it. The report they're about to give, well, it's going to set the course for history. No pressure, right?
And here's the thing. They didn't just come back with stories. Oh no. They brought back proof. Hard evidence. Get this, they found a single cluster of grapes that was so massive, so huge, it had to be carried on a pole between two men. Can you even picture that? This wasn't just fruit. This was Exhibit A, tangible proof that the promise of this incredibly abundant land was absolutely real.
So at first, everything seems great. The initial report? Totally unanimous. All 12 of them, every single spy confirmed it. Yep, the land is everything we were told. It truly flows with milk and honey. You can just feel the wave of excitement, the relief, sweeping through the camp. Finally. But that feeling, it was about to come to a screeching halt.
Yeah, because here's the crazy part. All 12 of these guys, they walked the same ground, they saw the exact same sights, they breathed the same air. And yet, they came back with two completely different interpretations of what they saw. It's like they visited two different places. One land, but two totally different realities. How does that happen?
Okay, so this is where it all fractures. On one side, you've got Caleb and Joshua. They're like, yes, it's a land flowing with milk and honey. Let's go up right now. We can totally do this. We will absolutely prevail. They're focused on the promise. But then you've got the other 10 spies. They saw the very same things and came back painting this horror movie picture of a land that consumes its inhabitants. I mean, you literally could not get two more opposite takes.
The 10 spies, the majority, they start laying out their case, and it's just this catalog of fear. Item number 1, the people there are mighty. Item 2, the cities are basically impenetrable fortresses. Item 3, the whole land is just swarming with enemies, Amalekites, Hittites, you name it. And then they drop the bombshell. The detail designed to terrify everyone, they saw giants.
And this quote, this is the absolute heart of their report. Pay attention to this. It wasn't just about the giants being big. The real issue was how the spies saw themselves compared to them. Their words, "We are like locusts in front of them." Wow. Think about that. Their fear literally shrunk them down in their own minds. They saw themselves as insignificant little bugs, totally powerless and completely doomed.
Well, as you can imagine, a report like that, a message of overwhelming fear and total powerlessness, it spread like wildfire. It was a virus. It just swept through the entire camp in an instant. And all that hope and excitement from just a few moments before, poof, gone, completely extinguished.
The reaction was just immediate and devastating. The whole nation just collapsed into despair. The text says it so simply but powerfully. And the people wept that night. Can you just picture that? An entire night of weeping. One bad report, just one, completely fueled by fear, was all it took to utterly crush the spirit of an entire nation. But it didn't just stop at grief. Oh no, that sadness quickly curdled into anger and full-blown rebellion. They turned on their leaders, they turned on Moses and Aaron, they even turned on God. Their fear got so big, so all-consuming, that they actually started looking back at their slavery in Egypt and thinking, you know what, that was better. They literally said it would have been better to die there than to face these giants. Unbelievable.
But wait, in the middle of all this chaos and panic, two guys stood firm, Joshua and Caleb. They make this last-ditch, desperate plea to try and turn the tide. They tear their clothes in anguish, they're shouting, "No, no, the land is exceedingly good." They're begging the people not to rebel, reminding them that with God on their side, victory wasn't just possible, it was assured.
So how did this terrified, hysterical mob respond to this powerful message of hope and faith? Did they listen? No. They picked up stones. They were literally about to execute Joshua and Caleb, the only two men who still believed. That's how powerful their fear had become. It was so absolute that it couldn't tolerate any other point of view. It became violent.
Right at that moment, that peak of rebellion, that's when divine judgment comes into the picture. The choice they all made in a single night of panic, well, it was about to have consequences that would last for an entire generation. This was the price of their disbelief.
40. That's the number. The punishment fit the crime, you could say. It was perfectly proportional. For the 40 days the spies spent in the land, exploring and letting their fear grow, the entire nation would now wander in the wilderness for 40 years. 1 year for every single day of that mission.
And the judgment was very, very specific. It wasn't just a blanket punishment. The 10 spies who brought back that terrifying report, they were struck down immediately. The entire generation of adults who listened and rebelled, they were sentenced to wander the wilderness until they died. They would never, ever see the promised land. The only ones spared from that fate were Caleb and Joshua. And it would be their children, the next generation, who would finally get to inherit the promise their parents were too afraid to claim.
And this right here is the ultimate takeaway of the whole story. Listen, the giants were real, the cities were definitely fortified, those obstacles were not imaginary. But in the end, those external things, they weren't the deciding factor. Not even close. An entire generation's destiny was sealed by what was going on inside their own heads, by the fear in their hearts that made them see themselves as nothing more than locusts.
Which of course leaves us with a pretty big question to think about. This story is so much more than just ancient history, isn't it? It's a timeless lesson in the power of perspective. And it kind of forces us to look in the mirror and ask, what are the giants that are stopping you from reaching your promised land? And maybe more importantly, how is your perspective on those giants shaping how you see yourself, as someone who can conquer them or as a locust? It's something worth thinking about.